Today we're going to talk about the Ricoh GR III. This is a camera that I've had in different iterations for several years. Beginning with probably about 5 years ago, I had the Ricoh GR Digital II, which is the original version with a CCD sensor. When I say original version, what I mean is prior to the move to the APSC sensor, Super 35 sensor, they had a line of digital cameras with a much smaller sensor. Not sure of the exact size, but it was a CCD sensor. Same form factor as the current GR series, but with a smaller sensor and a CCD sensor. That was a great little camera, and I loved the look that it had. At some point, I decided to move up to the GR2, which is the current kind of series of GRs. Not the digital series, but the GR2 with the APS-C sensor. And then eventually I moved up to what I have now, which is the GR3. So in today's environment with the GRs, there's a couple versions. There's the GR3, there's the GR3, I believe it's called a HDF, which is the included diffusion filter built in. And then there's the GR3X, which is a 40 millimeter focal length equivalent, whereas the original GR3 is a 28 millimeter focal length equivalent. And then I think there is now a GR3 HDF, which is the diffusion filter built in. And then I just saw recently there was an announcement for a GR4. So that's the new one that's coming out. The great thing about these cameras, and I should mention also that there was originally a series of film cameras that Ricoh made as well. That the original GR series was kind of a point and shoot film camera, 35 millimeter film camera. So the lineage is long with the GR series, and it's very much a street photography lineage. It's a highly regarded series for street photography. And as we'll see when we take a closer look at the GR3, the camera really has a lot of features built into it that are specific to street shooting. The lineup of GR has been around for 20 plus years, and in 2025 we have the latest iterations going into the GR4, which would still have a APS-C sensor. What do I love about the GR? Let's start there, because I have mentioned in many videos, prior videos, that the GR3 is, or well, let's just call it the GR, has been sort of my grab and go camera for several years now. If you really want simplicity, if you don't really know you're going to need a camera, but you want to have something more than just your smartphone on you, it's such an easy, small, pocketable, truly pocketable form factor that it's just a no-brainer to grab it and go. Now, the way I've got it built here, I've got like a Peak Design compatible, or maybe it's a Peak Design, I'm not sure if it's the compatible one or an actual Peak Design clip, which goes into the Peak Design capture that you can have on your backpack strap, but it's also an Arca Swiss form factor, and that's what I usually use it for, is to put on a small tripod. So that's on here now. And then I also have the thumb grip, which you use for one-handed operation, and then the wrist strap. And that's really all you need for a GR. There's not much more needed. Although with the GR3, in comparison to the GR2, which had the pop-up flash, you could have a external flash, which would be very useful with this camera, as we'll see. as we get into more of the details of the camera, how the flash can be very useful on these type of form factor cameras. So let's dive into not just the form factor, but the usability as a street camera or just a lifestyle, travel, environmental camera. Whenever I'm in a camera shop and someone that's new to cameras, and I always want to jump in and say, get a GR. See, either a GR or a Fuji X100. The idea that I would pitch to them is make it easy on yourself. With a GR or even an X100, you're grabbing a camera that you can have with you at all times. It can be in your pocket. You can keep it with you. You can carry it with you with very little impact on your life. You can, if you're like my daughter, she has the X100S. She takes it with her all the time because she can just slip it into her bag, and if she wants to take photos, she can take photos. If she chooses not to use it, it's not a big deal. It hasn't taken up tons of space. So that's my first piece of advice to people, is get something that you can take with you wherever you're going. Because especially when you're starting out in photography, the barrier is having the camera with you so that you can get the reps in to become a better and more proficient photographer. Then the next thing is the ease of use. You can put a camera like this or the X100 on pretty much fully automatic, and you'll get good shots. You will get good results because the lens is fantastic on this camera. It's a 28mm equivalent, so it's an 18.3 on APS-C and a 2.8 aperture, maximum aperture. So it's got a great, sharp, really nice lens, very good characteristics. Especially for a wider lens like a 28, you really do want to have good characteristics. That's why this camera is often compared with the Leica Q series, because it has that same focal length, which the Q has the actual 28mm lens on a full frame sensor, and then the GR has the APS-C 18.3mm, which is the 28mm equivalent. You need to really worry about distortion with a lens that's becoming that wide. So it's important to get a quality lens if you're going to be shooting in those wider aspect ratios, especially if you want to take photos of people, facial features, because you don't want a ton of distortion. Obviously, you don't want elongated features, etc., on your subject. So lens is really important, and you're going to get that with the GR. You're going to get a top quality, world-class lens. And then even deeper into the form factor, like this is it fully extended. Even fully extended, it's very minimal and easy to handle. And if you're doing street photography, that comes in handy because you can be very stealth with it. You don't have to put it up to your eye. You can just shoot, very simply. And it's a very silent shutter. I just took a shot, we barely hear it. So form factor is fantastic. It fires up really quickly, so if you're doing street photography, you don't have to leave it running. You can just turn it on. Here's the on button, here's the shutter button, very quick. So the form factor is fantastic. It's got a little wheel here for changing aperture. And then it has something called snap focus. So with snap focus distance, you can set a distance to your subject where you can just click without autofocusing, and it will automatically focus to that snap distance. And that is a feature that was, I believe, included even back in the original film version of the GRs. And that was that's what kind of defined it as a street photography camera, because that snap focus is sort of the original method of shooting street back when you didn't have autofocus. what you would do is you would set your manual focus to a certain distance, right? Because focus is based on distance. And then you would just shoot. You would know your target needs to be, say, for example, I've got it set to 2.5 meters, which is like roughly like, say 7 or 8 feet away. And you can set it to whatever distance you prefer in order to get the kind of framing that you're looking for when you're shooting street. And if you just hold the button straight in without like waiting, half pressing for focus, you will get, it'll focus to that distance automatically and you'll get the shot. So that's a very much street feature. Again, going back to the original Leica shooters with rangefinders, they would just set their distance and then they would just shoot. Going back before even rangefinders, which rangefinders was an advancement because you were able to actually determine your focus without just measurement, but with actual optically. Going back to the very old days before they've had even rangefinder technology, everything, all focusing was done by distance. So that's something that I think is kind of a useful skill to have in photography, is to be aware of distance and to be aware of how aperture and field of view works in terms of field curvature, because there's a thing called field curvature, which means that your depth of field is not exactly parallel to the lens. It may be in the center, it is roughly parallel to the lens, but as you go to the edges of the frame, there's field curvature, and depending on the lens characteristics, the curvature can cause the depth of field or the start and end points of the area that's in focus to curve slightly, right? It's a type of distortion, field distortion, that most people don't even think about. A lot of the cameras correct for it in body, but it's good to know these things because there's physics to this stuff, right? And understanding how cameras worked in the original days and the older days is actually quite useful to your practice of photography. But going back to me giving advice to a person new to photography and why would I recommend the GR3, it's also less daunting to have a camera like this. Like if you're out on the streets, or if you're visiting a foreign country, or if you're exploring, you don't really want to have like a big DSLR or even a mirrorless camera with large lenses. It can be a bit of put a bit of a target on you if you're in touristy areas, depending on the country you're in. Having a large, obviously expensive piece of equipment hanging around your neck could draw unwanted attention. So a camera like this is not going to draw unwanted attention. It just looks like a point and shoot. And essentially that's what it is, a point and shoot, except for it has a fantastic sensor and lens so that you're getting, I'll use the term professional quality, and take that with a grain of salt. You're getting very good results. Let's put it this way. A professional photographer would not shy away from using this camera for what it is. They're going to be happy. The professionals buy these kind of cameras for when they're on their own trips or with their family. These are the kind of cameras quite often people that are professional, day in and day out photographers prefer, because the camera gets out of your way, and it's not so much a camera thing. It's just the photography that you're doing and the images that you're getting that are important. So a camera like this gets out of your way and it just allows you to capture the moment, which is what you want. And that's one of the actual real strengths of smartphones as cameras, is that they kind of get out of the way. It's something you can pull out. People aren't really affected by people taking photos with a phone or a point and shoot. It's very low attention grabbing in our society to take photos with a phone or a point and shoot. It's like people don't even think twice about it. They'll walk right in front of you. They don't care, which is great because then you don't infect the scene. You're not putting an additional element into the environment by having a big professional looking camera that makes people think, what are those photos going to be for? When people see you taking photos with this, they just assume it's going on Facebook or whatever. Like, it's nothing really worrisome to people. And I think that that's a big feature to have in a camera. So yes, this camera, I mean, I'm not going to go through all the specs. The specs are known for this camera. But I will just kind of run through some of the specs that matter to me. One of the things, and I talk about this a lot with walk-around cameras, point-and-shoot style cameras, including the Leica Q, the Sony RX1 series, the Fuji X100 series, and the GR series. One of the things they all have in common is a leaf shutter lens. So leaf shutters differ from curtain shutters, which are the common shutter that you'll see in mirrorless cameras and hybrid cameras. Nowadays, there's a lot of cameras that are moving towards an electronic shutter, so they don't have a physical mechanical shutter. For example, my Sony FX30 has an electronic shutter. It doesn't have a mechanical shutter, which to me is a little bit of a drawback. I would love it if it did have a mechanical shutter. But the leaf shutter is the finest of all shutters. Now, there is a caveat to that. If you're wanting to shoot at extremely high shutter speeds, like above 4,000th of a second, above 2,000th to 4,000th of a second, then the curtain shutter is better because you have, or maybe even the electronic shutter, although I'm not 100% sure about that. But the leaf shutter is limited to some degree because quite often, depending on focal, like the aperture setting, you have, it can be variable max shutter speeds, but most of these cameras will do at least 1/2000th of a second, if not 1/4000th of a second with the leaf shutter. And what's great about a leaf shutter is, first of all, it exposes more like it's not a rolling shutter. It opens and closes like an iris. So when it exposes a different kind of pattern than a rising and falling curtain. And in addition to that, it means that you can sync your flash at very high speeds. So if you had a small flash on a camera like this, or like with the X100, I use it all the time, it has a built-in flash, you could have like a very strong ambient light, like the sun, for example, behind your subject. Normally, if you take a photo of that with a high shutter speed, it's going to silhouette your subject. So if you're taking a photo of someone's face, it's going to be very dark because it's exposing somewhat for the background, which is overblown and bright. With a leaf shutter, what you can do is sync your flash at very high speed. So you can pop a little bit of flash at a very high shutter speed, so you can still shoot at, say, 1/4000th of a second, pop a little flash to just expose the face, and you can crush the background light. So the sun back there, you can crush it because what you're doing is you're shooting at a fairly high shutter speed still, 1/4000th. You couldn't do that with a regular mechanical curtain shutter because your sync speed is limited to about 1/200th for flash sync on a curtain shutter. So you can't use those really high shutter speeds with a flash. If you tried to flash at a high shutter speed with a curtain shutter, you get banding. You get like a certain amount of the image would be flashed, and a certain amount wouldn't be because it moves too quick for the flash to be able to affect the scene because the curtain moves, right? So that's a big deal for me. I know that seems like it's such a small, I don't know. For those that know that feature, it's a game changer. For those that don't understand, they'll often say, well, if you wanted a Leica Q, why not just buy like a Sony A7C and put like a 28 millimeter lens on it? You've got your Leica Q for half the price. Yeah, but you still have a mechanical curtain shutter. You don't have a mechanical leaf shutter in that like you would with the Leica Q. So therefore, you're missing the point of these kind of point and shoot little fixed focal length cameras, is having that leaf shutter allows you to crush ambient light. It's also a much more durable shutter, so they're less susceptible to failure over multiple, like, massive amounts of shots. So yeah, it's a big upgrade to have a leaf shutter. And it's not a feature that's often explained to newbies that are new into cameras, but it's one of the key features of these walk-around cameras. The Ricoh has great profiles, as well as like the Fuji X100 is kind of renowned. Well, the Fuji series in general, but the X100 was one of the early ones that had the film profiles. Yeah, so you could shoot JPEG and get really beautiful results just out of JPEGs. Ricoh has their color profiles that are highly beloved as well. So that's another feature. If you want to shoot directly to JPEGs. Now, normally I shoot RAW normally anyways, because I edit photos, I edit color grade video. I'm not afraid of RAW footage or log output. But if you just want simplicity, like if you want to just be able to shoot and upload, having the ability to shoot really nice looking JPEGs in camera is fantastic. And then also you can develop in camera as well. If you go into the play menu, develop raw, it's called raw development. And in here you can actually take your image and you can apply a profile after the fact. That's the same thing as you can do in the X100 as well, as you can develop your footage, your shots within the camera, which is a great little feature. So you can do kind of like your edit essentially within camera. And if you thought, oh, you know what, that would have looked really good with such and such a profile, you already took the photo, you can go back in, take the raw, because I would recommend shoot raw and JPEG, and that way you do have the ability to apply a profile after the fact. So that's sort of my quick and dirty rundown of the GR3 and why I would recommend it to newer photographers, or even, I mean, I don't have to recommend it to avid photographers. It's a known camera amongst enthusiasts. So definitely those who are avid photographers, enthusiast photographers, really do know about the GR, typically know about the GR, and they know about the Leica Q, and they know about the a little less so about the RX1, the Sony RX1, which is kind of a fantastic camera as well. And then of course the X100 series, which is like sort of the flagship of all well, I guess that and the Leica Q, but the X100 really has like something magic about it. And I think it's because it has the optical viewfinder, it has the built-in flash, has the built-in NDs, and that's something I didn't mention about the GR. The GR3 has the built-in ND. The GR2 also has the built-in ND, and I believe the original GR, has the built-in ND as well. I think it's only there's only one option. It's either on or off. So it's not variable ND, but it does allow you to get like at least a few stops. I don't know if it's 2 stops or how many stops the ND is, but it will give you a couple of stops of ND if you need to shoot in bright situations. So that's helpful actually also in addition to having, because you don't have quite as fast of a shutter as you would with a curtain shutter with the leaf shutter. So that extra couple of stops of ND can help you get shots in very very bright situations without missing the shot, right? So, and then of course the other model that I mentioned, which is the HDF, adds the in-body, so it's electronically or menu selectable diffusion filter. So like a black pumice type of filter built right into the camera. Mine doesn't have it, but the HDF version does. Now the X100, it doesn't have the built-in diffusion filter, but it has built-in ND, built-in flash, which this one doesn't, and that's one of the benefits of the GR2, is it still has the flash, and kind of regret selling the GR2 because of that. Yeah, so overall, I give this camera highest rating. It is absolutely a fantastic addition to the quiver of cameras that you may have. It does get quite a bit of use by me because when I'm not fully, if I'm not really 100% sure I'm going to need a camera, or we're just going out for lunch or whatever, it's not a special thing that we're going to do, this is such an easy camera just to slip into your pocket. It's basically a go-to grab-and-go camera. And it's a little expensive. The prices aren't necessarily great, and it's hard to find well priced on the used market as well. It used to be that you could pick up the GR2s sometimes fairly inexpensively. I remember I bought a GR2 that was almost mint a few years ago for, I think it was like $350 with the box and everything. You don't see those deals very much. And if you do, you have to get on them quick because people are aware of the camera and they do really want it. I've seen the digital series, like the GR Digital 2, Digital 3, Digital 4, there's a whole slew of them, going for like $500 or $600 now, which to me is quite crazy. But they're really neat cameras as well, but very antiquated in comparison to the newer GR line. So anyways, that's my long-term review of the Ricoh GR III. If you love this camera or have this camera or don't like this camera, I would love it if you'd comment below, tell me about what your use case is for the GR3, some of the things, maybe I missed some points that you think are really important, or you can add to something that I've already mentioned. That would be great. As always, thanks for stopping by. I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to grow the channel and get a little bit more reach with my videos, and all the support that you give is greatly appreciated. That's it for today. Have a great rest of your day, and bye for now.